Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of the Daily Deuce. I'm Gary Graves from just outside Louisville, Kentucky. And in Maryland, my longtime friend, esteemed colleague, John Webster. How you doing, John?
Gary, I'm doing great, man. Everything's going well. Another exciting week and weekend in sports. I can't wait to get into this conversation with you. But before we do, we would be remiss if we didn't say hello to the man, the myth, the legend. John Pitt, what's going on?
What's up, guys? I just want to let our viewers know that the real game of the year is this Sunday night. I cannot wait.
Yes,
Go.
indeed. Yeah, we will talk about that too, because I think that game might determine more about the NFL, not just the NFC, but I'm talking about the NFL and who's the team to beat, probably more than any game than we've seen this year. We saw one game last weekend with Philadelphia and San Francisco, but this one really could define, I'll say, the league and maybe a certain quarterback's career on Sunday night, one way or the other. Even if I'd say, good or bad, he's going to come out of it looking pretty good if he has a good night. But we'll get into that in a moment. But first, let's talk about that lower level, and we have a playoff already set. College football playoff, number 1 Michigan versus number 4 Alabama, number 2 Washington, unbeaten Washington against number 3 Texas. We can get into some of the politics that determine this playoff in a minute, but let's talk about, John, where these two matchups really stack up. But I'm going to leave it to you. Since you're the Michigan fan, you tell me what you think about Michigan being seeded number 1 and really what this means for them in terms of facing Alabama.
Well, Gary, the number 1 seed is nice, but with that crown goes also challenges that you have to do when you wear the crown as a number 1 seed. Playing Alabama is no walk in the park. That's a very difficult matchup for Michigan. I think it'll be decided in the trenches. I think it's going to be like you and I used to say in the old days, Gary, a slobber knocker.
Thank you.
It's going to be a tough game. The last time Michigan played Alabama, I think it was the Citrus Bowl, and they were up by 3 at halftime and ended up losing by about 20. I love Coach Kaki. Everybody knows that. Love Michigan, but love Coach Kaki most. I'm rooting for him, but this is a very difficult matchup. Very difficult. Alabama, every week, finds a way to win. And I think they have done nothing but gotten better each week of the season. Keep in mind, Milroe was benched at one point this year.
That's right.
The kid, in some ways, and I'm not saying he plays like this guy, but I'm saying personality-wise, he reminds me of Jalen Hurts. Why do I say that? Hurts was benched in the national championship game. There was no bigger cheerleader on the sidelines for Tua than guess who? Jalen Hurts. When Milroe got benched, I think they played Buckner. And
oh yeah, quarterback, yeah.
Yeah, they played Buckner, and he was the biggest cheerleader on the sideline for him. And then he got his chance to go back, and we all know what happened when he got his chance to go back.
Yeah.
And I think he's doing a good job. That game against Georgia, I really thought Saban was going to go conservative and try to run the clock out. He opened it up and he let Milroe sling it around a little bit in very good way, strategically slinging around, not all over the place, just crazy slinging around. And man, that Alabama defense, my good. And I can't think of the kid's name. They got a freshman back there in the defensive backfield. This kid is just, he's a ball hawk. Everywhere the ball is, he's there. I can't think of the kid's name. I guess that's part of being old, Gary. I can't remember names sometimes, but I just think it's going to be a real tough game. On that other side, Washington and Texas, good game, but I think Texas takes it. I think Ewers as a quarterback is underrated. I'm not saying he's Michael Penix, but I will say he's underrated. I think that whole Texas team is underrated. I think Sarkisian's going to have them ready to play. I think Washington has been getting by some weeks, and they should not have been getting by. The Washington State game they got through, credit to them. They're the Pac-12 champions, but 2 times Oregon had them and could not close the deal. I think Texas closes the deal. And right now, I'll say Texas will be on one side. I'm hoping it's Michigan and Texas, but I'm not ready to go totally there yet, Gary. But I really believe Texas will be on one side for the national championship.
Yeah. Well, John, on one side of the bracket, I agree with you. I think Michigan, I think this is their moment. I think with that defense that they will figure out a way to stop Jalen Milroe. And I say that having seen Jalen Milroe against Kentucky when he passed when he had 4 touchdowns, 3 of them passing. He had time to throw. That was a big deal. He had open receivers. That was a big deal. He's not going to have that luxury against Michigan. Michigan is a slobber knocker defense. I think you're going to have to really. You talked about the trenches. I think Michigan is going to play that typical Big Ten brand of smash mouth football on both sides. Alabama offensively has struggled. Yes, they have gotten progressively better with Milroe as he's gotten more comfortable in the pocket, and he is a dual threat to run. But your boy, Coach Kaki, I think he's going to figure out a way to maybe keep a spy on him. I think he's going to figure out a way to keep him from doing damage. And with the Michigan secondary, they can cover those receivers. Again, I think it's going to be strength against strength. This might be the best matchup of the playoff because, again, Michigan, on the one hand, it was very easy for them to go into that Big Ten championship against Iowa, an offensively challenged Iowa squad, and really shut them down. It was the same thing, like say with FSU and Louisville. Louisville was not offensively challenged, but again, if you cut them off, you saw what happened. They settled for 2 field goals, and those were a struggle. And again, when they had a chance to take the lead, FSU shut them down in the end zone. Came up with that interception in the end zone. Well, I was almost about to go off on a tangent about FSU. But what I'm saying is, defense at this point in the season matters. As much as I love Jalen Milroe, and I think you're looking at next year's front runner for the Heisman Trophy, that you still have to beat a very good defense. And Auburn, I'd say for 59 minutes, had that kind of defense against Alabama. But all of a sudden, they had a brain lock on that last play, didn't rush him, and you saw what Milroe can do with time and finding a receiver. And he used every inch of the field as he's done pretty much ever since since he sat out the South Florida game and they escaped that one 17-3. You were talking about watching from the sidelines and being a cheerleader. The good thing about Jalen Milroe is that he's humble enough to understand why it was done, and he really observed and saw what the backup could do and what he needed to do coming back. There was that 2-game stretch where it was LSU and Kentucky where he combined for 10 touchdowns. I think it was 6 of them passing over that 2-game spread. And really, I think over 3 games, it was something like maybe 12 to 14 touchdowns, if I recall. He is definitely a threat that will be accounted for. But if anybody can account for him, it's Coach Kaki. That your defensive coordinator, and yes, I said your defensive coordinator, will figure out a way, because with 3 weeks to prepare, yes, I know it's Nick Saban. Yes, I know it's, him and his 6 national championships, last time I counted. But again, I do think this is Michigan's moment. I think it's time for them to really prove what kind of program they are. And John, for me to say that as an Ohio State fan, I mean, I just give credit where it's due. Uh, I think Michigan is poised for this moment. They have been consistent, even when they've been challenged. They have been consistent. On the other side of the bracket, you like Texas. I like Texas. My heart says Texas, but my brain says Washington. Why? Because every time we discount Washington, they they just win. I mean, it's like you always say, all I do is win, win, win. That's what they do. It's like they toy with teams that we think are going to beat them. They've done it twice now with Michigan. I'm sorry, with Oregon, and have now they have a conference title and a spot in the playoff, and really just a chance to prove themselves. I think Michael Penix Jr. is playing some of his best ball in general as a body of work right now, and for all I'll say the struggles, I think in any conference, when you see an opponent enough times, especially if you face them a second time, there's kind of that familiarity breeds contempt thing in play. I don't want to say that they cannibalize each other in what used to be known as the Pac-12, but every time this season that Washington has seemed to be challenged, they just find a way to just to gain a little space and then pull away, and then they force everybody to really kind of catch up to them. That's what they've done with Oregon, and both times I thought Oregon was going to take them, but both times Washington just found a way, and I think they'll find a way in this playoff. As much as I love how Texas is playing right now, and their little exit interview from the Big 12 conference, I think that was a statement more toward the conference than anything, and that's not to take anything away from from what they mean to the national title picture, but just think about this, John. Oklahoma State, Mike Gundy was named Big 12 Coach of the Year. If that wasn't kind of a middle finger to Texas and Sarkisian, I don't know what was. Well, Sark and the Longhorns turned it right back on him. It was, and I loved it, because again, it's like, they're saying, well, you can't leave us. It's like, yeah, we can. A year ago, when all this was going down with Texas and Oklahoma going to the going to the SEC, I was thinking, nah, it's not the best thing. But now I love it, because I love to see the best teams compete on the best stage, whether they're divisions, which I don't think they will go to, whether it's really two power conferences in college football, doesn't matter, because I still think at the end of the day, you're still going to see the best teams across what's left of the Power Five. It might be the Big 2+2, the Big 2+1, with all due respect to the ACC. But I really do like where Texas is heading in. That's going to be a tough game. And again, you like Texas, and I understand that, but I think I'm going with Washington, because they are just a team that just doesn't flinch. John, remember that when we first started learning how to drive, and we had friends, and sometimes friends would, we'd go somewhere, and then we'd all get back in the car. You'd beat them back to the car, and then you kind of pull ahead, and then just as they we get to the car door, you pull ahead a little bit. That's what Washington reminds me of when they play teams. Just as you think you got your hand on the car door handle, they pull away, and they're laughing while they do it. Now Washington might not be laughing, but I think they just feel like they can control their own destiny, and it's kind of a finesse game that they play, or that they appear to play, but they're very good at controlling the line of scrimmage. And it was something I was looking at with their numbers, and I want to say they were something like they're a top 20 team offensively. They're a little bit lower defensively, but they're concerned defensively because I think they give up a lot more yards than you might expect. But again, when push comes to shove, they push back.
Well, you make a very good point about Washington. They are nobody to discount or disrespect. I think they are good, but I'm going to still go with hook 'em horns. Still going with them, and we'll see what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, again, I love this because, John, in many respects, I do think we have the four best teams, but I still wonder what might have been with Georgia and Florida State in the mix. We talked a lot on Sunday, by text about how the field shook out. And I think we both agreed that Florida State got royally screwed by this. And again, even if you understood all of the factors, you take strength of schedule, you take opponents' combined records and stuff, and yeah, Florida State doesn't quite meet the criteria. But John, I don't know how in the world do you have a team that's unbeaten, win their conference championship, and are ranked fourth. They are in the field the next to the last week, and then you bounce them out and you say, well, wait a minute, they didn't meet, whatever kind of beauty standard. They didn't win decisively enough. In retrospect, I don't know if that would have helped them at all. Just based on the things that we're hearing, because what was the thing that came out of this? Oh, well, they're not the same team without Jordan Travis, and that you want the best team going forward. Well, even if Tate Rodemaker was going to be their quarterback, he would have had 3 weeks to recover by the time they got to a playoff game. They're going to have him when they face Georgia. So a lot of those arguments against Florida State being in the playoff really ring hollow. Why? Because they did what they were supposed to do. They won. It didn't have to be decisive. It just had to be done. And I think they really shortchanged the playoff as well as a very good team. Again, a team that, come a year from now, maybe, 2 years from now, you're going to see a lot of those defensive players playing on Sundays in the NFL.
Well, Gary, I guess my question to you would be, rough situation for Florida State.
Mm-hmm.
I can see arguments both ways. Why they should be in, why they did not get in. It is unfortunate, I will say that. But what things do you see that the committee can do differently in the future? What can be done?
I think they need to really eliminate that beauty standard because, again, there's no accounting for the timing of injuries. And again, it happened 2 weeks ago. Well, 3 weeks ago. And remember, they were fifth, when right after the injury. And you figure, yeah, that's probably going to hurt their chances. But then, they go and beat Florida and they get back in. And you figure all they have to do is win out and that they're in the playoff, and then they got surprised. I guess 16 points or a 10-point deficit, a 10-point margin of victory, isn't enough. I mean, they snuffed Louisville. They held them to 188 yards. And as someone who covers Louisville, I've seen them light it up. I really thought the potential was there for them to light it up. At first glance, had Jordan Travis been healthy, but my goodness gracious, I've never seen a defense like that. It's like everything that Louisville tried, be it running the ball, be it passing the ball. They dictated the tempo. And I haven't seen a defense like that in a long, long time. It almost reminded me of remember Shade Tree in those days back in the 90s. Oh my goodness. I mean, again, that's a tough defense, and I think we really would have benefited by seeing that in the playoff field. We'll see it in the Orange Bowl against Georgia, against Brock Bowers and Carson Beck, and that might be probably one of the nastier games because both teams are royally hot over being left off. And I wanted to get your feeling about how Georgia got left out of it. You're talking about what, 29 straight victories or something like that, two-time defending national champion, and they lose to Alabama, and they're bystanders.
Well, going into that game with Alabama and Georgia, I saw that as a playoff game, meaning whoever lost was eliminated. That's how I saw that going in. I think Georgia, this is the unfortunate thing. I mentioned this to you and John Pitt Sunday. You have these conference games, these conference championships. Georgia's won what, 29 games in a row? Am I close to what they have won?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
29 games in a row. And then you have this blip in the road, a blip called Alabama, that you lose. Now that you've lost Alabama, those 29 games mean nothing because you're participating in the conference championship. Call me old-fashioned. That's why I don't like conference championships. Don't like them in basketball, don't like them in any sport. Because more what's the word I'm looking for? More credit is given to a team for winning a conference championship than a team who has won a regular season championship. In my world, and I probably am a minority in this, it takes more in my mind, it takes more to win a regular season championship than it does a conference championship. Conference championship in football, you get that one day. Congratulations to Alabama. They played a great game. They deserve to win. No doubt about it. Go to basketball, you have 3 days and you get hot and you get into the tournament. You're 3-55, but you get into the tournament because you just won 3 games to get into the NCAA tournament. That's why I don't like conference championships because, and I'll say this too, Gary. Even with Georgia losing, because of the way everything is set up, for me, it's hard for me to sit and say Georgia should get in because they lost. And like I said, going into that game, as far as I was concerned, whoever lost that was definitely out. Now, Alabama being 8th and going up to 4, that's a whole nother story for another day on 60 Minutes. But this whole thing about you play this one game, you've done all this the regular season, and you're out of it. And it's unfortunate. It's rough, man. It's terrible. But it's part of life, and it's just the way things go. You mentioned something earlier that's very interesting. I know we got to go to the next subject. But you talk about the eye test. Crazy thing, in my opinion, with eye test, Gary, you're right. It's a beauty contest. You look at it, but you have a hard time getting rid of it. You know why? It's silent and it's subjective. You can't really get rid of it. It's always going to be there. You're going to, I don't care if you're talking about the Frozen Pond Final Four with Michigan, Notre Dame, and whoever else is playing in the hockey on the Final Four, you still have an eye test. And the reason that it's hard to get rid of it is subjective and it's silent. And you will never get anybody to admit to an eye test. You'll never get anybody to really come across and admit that. So, that's just the way I see it.
Yeah, John, you're right. And I think the problem with the committee that a lot of people have is when I say there's no accountability, it's like, they didn't, you heard that they took multiple votes. I guess it's what, a 13-member committee that they took multiple votes. How many, I haven't seen that. but I guess it's kind of like jury deliberation, until you come up with a unanimous verdict. And again, from various reports from inside the room where it happened, that it got kind of heated, as you might just discuss. But in terms of the subjective part, that's where money and TV have come in and have created a situation, John, that you hate with these conference championship games. And you make a very good point. Of course, you being a coach, I understand why you want to be rewarded for a body of work over the regular season, because that really is the true test, I believe, of a champion, particularly in football. You can, I don't even know, but I mean, basketball, you can make a case too, because, even here in Kentucky, John Calipari hates the SEC tournament because, after you've played 18 games and, you win the regular season, you still have to get hot over 3 or 4 days to win the conference championship. And, I can think of at least 3 or 4 times that Kentucky's best teams, the ones that have won national championships, didn't win their conference tournament, and that just seems kind of weird. Like the Anthony Davis team in 2012, who beat them in the SEC? Vanderbilt, of all schools, and Vanderbilt was pretty strong then. But again, that's one of those really weird things about the difference between a regular season and a tournament. With football, and another thing too that you remember about college football in the last 10 years, that conferences such as the Big 12 and the Pac-12, were kind of late to the game in terms of adding championship games. Yes, it's kind of benefited them in a sense, as we're seeing now. But they were firm believers that the regular season really should matter more, and that's how they sent their champion. It might have seemed archaic, but you understood why they did it, because just because TV and the money says, oh yeah, play one more game to prove yourself, that this is where we are. At the same time, it's gotten both conferences in the national playoff picture, and they get a chance to prove themselves.
You said a mouthful, Mr. Graves. As always, I totally get it.
Yeah. Well, the game of the year again. I'm gonna say week 2, game of the year, Dallas and Philadelphia. Okay. On the one hand, John, this is the game that I kind of expected to see, not so much for the NFC East, but in terms of Dak Prescott really proving what kind of quarterback he is, because we've had debates all through this season about whether he's even the best quarterback on his own team. And here Prescott is playing probably the best football of his life. Dallas is really looking good at the right time of year, just like I want to say you said they were. I can't remember whether it was our man John Pitt or you that thought that they would be in the mix at this point. I'm still a believer that Philadelphia is gonna win the division, but after being seriously humbled by the 49ers last week, that my goodness gracious, whew, I mean, it's wide open in that division now. And I think this is Dak Prescott's moment to shine and really prove himself and really take Dallas to that next level and be the serious player that you and John Pitt and a whole lot of people in the Washington, D.C. area think he's going to be.
Another great game coming up, Dallas and Philadelphia. I told Pitt before the show started today, and I told Dante earlier this week, this is a great situation for Dallas. Doesn't get any better than what is sitting on the table right now. I've said from the beginning, I think Philadelphia is very good, but I didn't think they could win the NFC East again this year. not because they're not good, but it's just because of what they're facing schedule-wise. I think it's rough. I also said earlier to Pitt, I get a first place schedule. Totally get that. That's nothing new. That's been going on forever. But to have a first place schedule and to have to play Kansas City, Dallas, San Francisco, Buffalo, Dallas again, Seattle, that's absolutely that's ludicrous. In the words of Mike Tyson, that's just really rough. That's just really that's tough. I mean, you could have sprinkled in the Commanders or somebody in between there to ease that up. That's a rough schedule. Now, with that being said, coming up this Sunday, I fully expect the Dallas Cowboys to beat the Philadelphia Eagles. I think Dallas is unbelievable at home, first thing, but they're also playing good ball, period. So you look at them and you see what they're doing on offense with CeeDee Lamb again, I forget the name, the other receiver that's playing really well. Tight ends doing great. They're getting good running out of Pollard, and Prescott is playing well. The defense, Parsons has always been a beast. Deron Bland has really done a great job since Trayvon Diggs is out. But I will say this, Gary. I will say this. Dallas may want to consider playing a little bit more zone in this game and not having Bland set up to go against A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith. He's going to need help both ways. Both ways, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I think from Philadelphia's standpoint, that everybody that I've talked to about Philadelphia thinks that they, in a sense, have been playing fast and loose by luck. I mean that they have just danced with fate too many times this season. And yeah, there's some truth to that. But they've also won those games, and I think that's what's really, really impressive. They have not played their best game, and of course, San Francisco just came in and basically curb stomped them last weekend, which of course, makes the San Francisco 49ers the de facto NFC East champions, having beaten both of them, something by like a 89-24 margin or something like that. You probably know that better than I do, but
42-19, 42-10.
Whew, man. Oh, that's just brutal. But again, you know why I can't trust San Francisco on that one? Because of that 3-game losing streak that, where I was like, how in the world did they lose those games? And they have a tendency to take their foot off the pedal at times. They get up for the games that they have to get up for, and I guess that's impressive. And of course, this time of year, it really does matter. But you just can't rise to the occasion all the time. If you really want home field advantage, which is the big thing in the NFL in the playoffs, you have to get up for everybody. And I think that's the thing about Philadelphia that I'm impressed with, their resilience and understanding what the big picture is, that they don't have to be pretty. They don't have to be perfect, as much as they're still striving toward that. Again, for whatever reason, they just have not found that smooth gear. It's like, I think what you talk about, the blimp in the road, that they're playing well, but last week, that was, they hit that blimp in the road, and now they have to do a reset, which is what they probably needed more than anything else. Because I think no matter how good a team is playing, sometimes you need that humbling loss to do a reset and figure out, what do we do next to kind of get back to that level. With what 5 games left, I think there is time for them to correct things. And if they come out with a split with Dallas, again, it's going to come down to all of those little head-to-head factors as to whether they defend their NFC East title, and they still have to, navigate the rest of that schedule. So, and it's a tough one, but I agree with you. I think it does favor Dallas on Sunday because Dak is seeing the field well. He's getting time to throw. His receivers are getting separation. Everything that they should have done to make him successful earlier in his career, even earlier this season, they're doing now. Better late than never, but it's really, really good to see. And of course, as much as it pains me to say that this is what the league needs, the league needs the Dallas Cowboys to be successful, to keep people, watching and betting on games, to remain relevant. And again, I like to see storied franchises rewarded for their success. It's been what, 35 years or something like that, or 37 years since their last Super Bowl win. It's time. It's time. And it's time for them to stop, relying on the hype and start living up to it. And I think Sunday is going to be probably the best opportunity. And if they win that game, as I think both of us think they will, then you got to go after that team, that other nemesis, the San Francisco 49ers, to really prove your worth and really win this conference and get to that next level, because that's the next hurdle for no matter who wins on Sunday.
Well, good point about San Francisco, but they got to keep their eye on what's in front of them, which is Philadelphia. But I will say this about San Francisco. If Dallas watched that game, there's a blueprint on what they need. It was even there before San Francisco. Run the ball at Philadelphia. They are not the same strong team they were last year on defense. Run the ball. San Francisco ran behind Highway 71 repeatedly, over and over again. They went right behind Trent Williams all day long, and they couldn't stop it, especially in the second half. They were breaking off 6, 7, 8, 9, 15-yard runs at a time, so.
That was a Rigo drill.
Huh?
That reminded me of an old Rigo drill.
Oh my goodness! Are we going to? Are we segueing into them, Gary?
No. But when you said 6, 7 yards, I just kept thinking about those old days. John Riggins, the ball carrier. John Riggins gains 9 yards. That's how you win games, John. We say this almost every week, and it was a thing to behold. And it was just nothing that Philadelphia could do. And if Dallas is going to beat Philadelphia, run the daggone ball.
Again, I sound old-fashioned, but
yeah,
slam that thing up in there. That's what you do. You go for 2 or 3 yards in the first half, you weaken them up. Second half, they're going to fall like butter. They're wide open then.
Yeah, but at the same time, Philadelphia probably needs to take that same page, needs to take that same advice if they want to win. Yeah, Parsons is a beast to try to get by, but every time Philadelphia runs the ball, they have. When they've committed to the run, they've gotten success. They've gotten dividends for it. Whether it hurts, no matter who's carrying the ball, if they commit to the run, they can succeed. But for whatever reason, some of these OCs just want to get cute and just say, well, that's kind of boring. Let's go for the chunk plays and stuff. You wear a defense down, the chunk plays are going to be there eventually.
Yep, you're absolutely correct. So
yeah,
it's a big game this week, and I'm quite sure John Pitt's going to be in front of his TV with popcorn and hot dogs and whatever else watching this. Him and my son Dante, they'll both be there watching. I know it. And also, I know my oldest son, JR, he's a big Philadelphia Eagles fan. I know he thinks they're going to win. I got a surprise for you, JR. Philadelphia's going down, my friend.
Wait a minute. JR is a Philly fan?
Yeah.
I I thought he was on that Dallas bandwagon like Dante.
No, 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 no. JR likes the Eagles, and he's going to be a little upset on Sunday.
Wow. Yeah, my brother-in-law is a huge Eagles fan. He's probably already got his popcorn and everything else, getting ready for that game. Again, I think Philadelphia, even if they have a two-game losing streak,
Mm-hmm.
that it in the grand scheme of things, I think it helps establish something of a reset for them for down the line. I think they say what you said that they face Buffalo, right?
Yep.
After this Sunday. Yeah. Buffalo can be had. Of course, Washington
No,
can be
wait a
had.
minute.
Oh,
Philadelphia's already played Buffalo.
that's
If
already played.
Dallas,
Okay.
I'm not sure if Dallas has played. I can't remember. I
Yeah.
know Philadelphia
Yeah.
still has to go. They have Dallas. They got to go to Dallas. They go to Seattle, and then they have Arizona,
Seattle,
Giants.
that's the one that
Yeah.
I'm thinking
And
about.
that's no picnic either. Playing out in Seattle in front of those fans. That's the 12th man. So it's going to be tough. It's going to
Yeah.
be very, very tough. But I still stick with it. Dallas beats Philadelphia Sunday.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it does favor them on Sunday. I still think Philadelphia will probably come out on top in the NFC East just because of their resilience. They're a team that I think has learned from the recent past, learn how to improve off of losses as opposed to say like coasting on their wins. And I heard this a lot this morning when they talk about, it's like it's a lot easier to gain character and learn from losses than off of wins, because you feel like, well, hey, whatever's working is working, let's just keep doing it. But when you lose, especially lose a tough game, you learn what you need to do better to get back to that level. And it is there's something about urgency that really brings out the best in the team. And I think you started to see that with Dallas, that's led to the surge, because after that last loss that they had, I mean, we had them dead and stinking like Elmo Jenkins, man, with all apologies due to any Elmo Jenkinses that are watching. Um, but again, it was a character builder. They did a reset. They figured out how to make things easier for their quarterback. They figured out how to make things easier for their defense. And both sides of the ball, they are thriving.
It's going to be an interesting weekend, Gary. I can't wait.
Oh man, me neither.
I just can't wait. And next week we're going to have a lot to talk about again. But go ahead and take us home, Gary.
Well, let's see. Okay, well, college football is done for a couple of weeks before bowl season starts. John, I am one of those few people who this year, I'm actually looking forward to some of the 37 bowl games. I said some of them, not all of them. I do have my issues with 5 and 7 and 6 and 6 teams getting bowl bids, but this is where we are. It's when you start to get into some of these other ones where you have 8, 9, 10-win teams starting to play, teams that we will be talking about hopefully next year when the playoff expands to 12 teams. That I think that's when these lesser bowls, so to speak, are gonna start carrying more weight. But I'm looking forward to bowl season this year because I want to see the James Madisons and the Liberties, really prove themselves. Even like here in Louisville, that even though they've lost consecutive games, that they're still a 10-win team with a chance to win 11, and they face USC, albeit without Caleb Williams. But again, they have a chance to really finish on a high note, and it'll be good to see, because again, this was a team that when the season started, few people around here believed that they were capable of winning 8 games, maybe 7 games, and here they are, just a week removed from a conference title game. in a season where nobody, really expecting much with a first-year coach. All I'm saying is that this is why they play the games. And I think this is why people are so upset about Florida State, because they play the games, they won the games, and I think people would have liked to see what could have happened in the playoff, and injuries or not, this is why you play the games to prove it, to prove themselves. But the next couple of weeks, we take a deep breath, we enjoy college basketball, and then we get into bowl season, and then we watch games being flexed to Monday night. I think we've had one game flex from Sunday to Monday night already, and some games, move to Sunday night. And Saturday football, I think we start up this weekend with Saturday football, Christmas shopping football?
I think it's
Or is
next
that
weekend.
another week?
I think it
Okay.
starts next weekend.
Yeah, but I mean, we're getting into that great time of year. Folks, watch all the sports you can, take your mind off Christmas shopping, take your mind off all the other stuff. Enjoy sports for what they are, escapism. Enjoy the wrap up of the in-season tournament in the NBA. Enjoy women's college basketball. Yes, women's college basketball. That is the game to watch right now, because it is fun to watch. Men's game is still, it's got this got its appeal too right now with Arizona #1. But come back, watch us, listen to us discuss it, dissect it, talk amongst yourselves, yell amongst yourselves, cheer amongst yourselves. John, all yours.
Hey, sit back, buckle your seats up, and enjoy this ride we're getting ready to have for the next couple of weeks. You're going to have some football. You're going to have some basketball, pro and college, men's and women's. Enjoy it, man. Enjoy the college football as well. Bowl season's coming up. But above all else, come back and see us again next week. Take care.